both married into families from the neighboring village. She married a promising young army officer named Ryan Carter, while I was given to the lazy good-for-nothing at the east end of the village, Tim Lee. Later, Ryan was discharged from the army due to an injury, and Emma's dream of being a respected officer's wife was completely shattered. Tim, however, caught the wave of the economic reforms, started a business, and rose to become the richest man in the province. On the second day of the Lunar New Year, when I returned to my parents' home, Emma poisoned me with rat poison. The moment I opened my eyes, I was back on the eve of my wedding. Emma was throwing a fit, insisting she had to marry Tim. Our parents couldn't stop her, so they asked me to be understanding and switch engagements with her. I agreed, but inside I couldn't help but laugh coldly. If I wanted to be the richest man's wife, the condition was that Tim had to actually become the richest man. But I didn't care. I just wanted to marry Tim Lee. So what if he was lazy and shiftless? Once a man got married, he'd learn to work hard and support his family. What was so great about Ryan Carter anyway? He rarely came home, maybe only a few times a year. Marrying him would have been no different from living like a widow. In the main room, Emma lifted her chin proudly, demanding that our parents swap her marriage arrangement with mine. My father sat in his chair, puffing on his pipe without a word, his face dark and clouded. My mother tapped Emma's forehead in frustration and said angrily, "What's so bad about Ryan Carter? A soldier's pay is good, his family is simple, and you'd live comfortably. Tim Lee has 3 older brothers, and none of those sisters-in-law are easy to get along with. With your temper, you'll suffer from endless scheming in that household." The gut-wrenching pain in my heart felt like a nightmare. I sat silently in the corner, one hand pressed to my stomach, a cold smile on my lips. So Emma had been reborn too. In our past life, my mother arranged marriages for both of us. I was only 17, not even old enough to marry, but our family was too poor. My eldest brother was 22 and still hadn't found a wife. My second brother was also at marriageable age, and my youngest brother was growing up quickly and would someday need a wife too. Everything required money. After weighing it all, my parents decided to marry Emma and me off first, and use our dowries to bring in daughters-in-law for their sons. Emma and my second brother were twins, and as the first daughter, she was treasured more. That's why my mother went to great lengths to arrange a match for her with the Carter family. I was the 4th child, with older siblings above and a younger brother below. When my mother gave birth to me, she suffered through a day and night of pain, which left her bitter. On top of that, I was quiet and introverted, so she didn't like me. When the Lee family noticed my looks and sent someone to propose, my mother agreed without hesitation. After all, who could refuse the sky-high bride price of 288 yuan? And just like that, I was sold to the Lees. Emma, delighted, married Ryan Carter, dreaming of becoming the admired wife of an officer. But fate was cruel. Ryan was injured, discharged, and fell into depression, and Emma's dream collapsed. She ran off to the city and came back the next year, belly swollen, demanding a divorce. She claimed she'd found a wealthy businessman and refused to waste her life on a ruined man. She divorced Ryan and rushed off to find her big boss, only to discover he had vanished without a trace. She searched everywhere, but he was gone. She returned home dejected, only for our parents to drag her out to meet other suitors. But having once lived a life of extravagance, Emma refused to marry a rural man and suffer hardship. Meanwhile, Tim Lee became the richest man in the province. On the second day of the Lunar New Year, when I returned home, Emma forced rat poison down my throat. Just before I died, I saw her face twisted with jealousy and madness. Why do you get to be the richest man's wife, basking in glory, while I'm abandoned and stuck at home, forced to live under my sisters-in-law's thumbs? I never imagined that after being given a second chance, Emma would cling even more stubbornly to the idea of marrying Tim Lee. She flailed her arms and shouted, "I'm going to marry Tim Lee. If you don't let me, I'll kill myself." My mother had already exhausted her words trying to persuade her, and upon hearing this, she grew even angrier, spitting as she snapped, "Go ahead then. If you have the guts, do it and let me see." Emma choked up, then stormed out of the house in a fit of anger, shouting, "You'll all regret this." My mother clutched her chest and sank into a chair, complaining about how she could have given birth to such a troublesome daughter. My father stubbed out his pipe and said, "Don't work yourself up so badly. Be careful or you'll make yourself sick. Once she thinks it through, she'll come around." My mother rubbed her chest, trying to steady her breath, then turned and glared at me. "Lisa, do you want to marry into the Carter family too?" Sitting there, pointing out all of Tim Lee's good qualities. "Were you hoping to switch your engagement as well?" Ever since I was little, everything had always been blamed on me. Whenever the grain ran out, I was scolded. If my mother quarreled with the aunts and lost, she'd take it out on me. If Emma and my little brother snuck sugar from the jar, I was the one punished. "You little debt collector," she used to snap. "I must have owed you something in my past life." Yet here and now, it was clearly Emma who had been reborn, who wanted to change engagements just to become the richest man's wife. But somehow, my mother decided it was me who was unwilling, me who had stirred up the trouble. We were both her daughters. Why did she have to be so biased? I clenched my fists, but kept an innocent look on my face. The truth was, I had never even met Tim Lee, nor did I know anything about his family's circumstances. How could I have persuaded Emma to marry him? My mother mulled it over and found my reasoning made sense, so she fell silent, lost in thought. By the time lunch was on the table, Emma still hadn't come back. My mother slammed her chopsticks down in frustration. "That wretched girl is too stubborn for her own good, not even coming home to eat." Just as the words left her mouth, a 7 or 8-year-old boy came running up to our house, panting. Something terrible happened. Emma jumped into the river. By the time we arrived, Emma had already been pulled out. She lay on the riverbank, her whole body soaked, her face deathly pale. My mother gathered her in her arms, both worried and furious. "You foolish girl with such a temper. Weren't you afraid the river would carry you away? If something had happened, would you have us, your parents, bury our child before ourselves?" Emma coughed a few times, her voice hoarse as she rasped. "So, what about that matter, Mom? Do you agree or not?" My mother, exasperated, snapped. "When you threaten to live or die, what choice do I have? Just don't come back to regret it later." Having gotten what she wanted, Emma looked at me with triumph and pride, as if she were already the richest man's wife. I lowered my gaze, suppressing the smirk of schadenfreude tugging at my lips. "My dear sister, so many surprises await you in the Lee household." By threatening her life, Emma secured the marriage she wanted. Out of pity, my mother agreed to this ridiculous last-minute exchange, but no one bothered to ask me whether I was willing. They only informed me afterward, as if that was enough. Once again, I was the one who had to suffer in silence, while they urged me to be understanding, to yield to Emma. My father said, "You saw it yourself. Your sister insists on marrying Tim Lee. Be sensible and swap with her." My mother added, "The Carter family's conditions are excellent. Your sister's too blind to see it, so you'll benefit instead. Lisa, who you marry doesn't matter. Husband is husband. Can't you bear to see your eldest brother grow old without a wife?" I stayed silent, but my hot-tempered second brother, Emma's twin, couldn't hold back. "Lisa, don't be ungrateful. The Carters are such a good match, and you still look down on them? Do you think you're some goddess destined to wed an emperor?" Emma leaned back against her chair with satisfaction, nibbling on a brown sugar egg while our youngest brother drooled with envy. She finished it in a few bites and casually handed him the leftover sweet syrup. "That's right, Lisa. You've never even met Tim Lee, let alone developed feelings for him. Whoever you marry, it's all the same. The whole family is already pleading with you. What more do you want? Do you expect Mom and Dad to kneel down and beg?" Those words only made my parents glare at me with more disapproval. I raised a well-behaved smile. "I'm willing to switch." Relief washed over them, until I added, "But I want 100 yuan as my dowry." "What?" Emma cried out in shock, clearly not expecting me, who had always submitted quietly, to dare make such a demand. She had always thought of herself as the favored one, yet even she had never dared ask for a dowry that high. My mother's calm facade crumbled. 100 yuan for dowry money? You really dare to say that? I only gave Emma 20 yuan when she married. I remained composed. The Lee family offered 288. Asking for 100 is hardly too much. After all, what the Lee family valued most was my face. I paused, letting my gaze linger on Emma's features with deliberate amusement. With her looks, there was no way she could fetch a bride price of 288 yuan. Emma was so furious she gnashed her teeth, because deep down she knew it was the heartbreaking truth. I was the least favored child in the family, yet I had inherited the best of our parents' features. I was pretty enough that I often seemed like I didn't even belong to them. Whenever we visited relatives during New Year, everyone who saw me would exclaim, "What a beautiful child." When it came to Emma, all they could muster was a bland, "This child looks sensible." Emma knew she wasn't as attractive as I was, so she relied on our parents' and brothers' favoritism to keep me beneath her. As the autumn wind carried a sharper chill, I laid things out plainly. If you don't give me the money, I might just tell outsiders something I shouldn't. If the Lee family comes back to demand their bride price and break off the engagement, you'll all be the ones losing out. My mother, unwilling to yield, tried to guilt-trip me. Can you really bear to watch your eldest brother remain single, to leave your father and me without a grandson? I spread my hands in resignation. Yes, I can bear it. It's not my job to give you grandchildren. My mother was livid, while my eldest brother tugged urgently at her sleeve. She's already 22, he pleaded. After so much effort, both younger sisters are finally getting married and we've received a good sum of dowry money. I'm on the verge of having a wife and children. Don't let things fall apart now. Hearing her son's plea, my mother closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and said, "Not 100, I'll give you 66. Not a cent more." "Deal," I answered without hesitation. Our family was poor, and my mother had always been stingy with me. 66 yuan was already a blessing. In my last life, when I married, I only had one new dress to my name, and the 288 yuan dowry had nothing to do with me. But reborn again, I knew that money was only reliable when it was in my own hands. Hopefully, this 66 yuan would be the start of something better. Emma, stung by my dowry, immediately whined, "Mom, I want more dowry money too." My mother's face darkened. "You still dare ask for money? If it weren't for your nonsense, would I have had to give Lisa 66 in the first place? Your dowry will be 20 yuan. Take it or leave it." Emma pouted. "But the Carter family gave 166. Why can't I have more?" My mother slapped her shoulder and pointed at my 3 brothers. "Your 2 older brothers and your younger one all need wives. The dowries from you 2 girls barely cover it, not to mention the clothes we have to make for your marriages. Be grateful for what you get. The wedding is soon, and I won't allow any more trouble." With her face stern, my mother silenced Emma, who shrank her shoulders and dared not say another word. The Lee family hadn't split their household, so the 288 yuan bride price was pooled money. Naturally, my sisters-in-law were already displeased. When I failed to bring a single coin back to them, they often mocked me and made Emma's life harder as well. Compared to that, her 20 yuan dowry was nothing. I lay on my bed, idly picturing Emma being put on the spot, relishing the thought. "Don't get too full of yourself." Emma's voice came through the ragged bedsheet in the dark. I didn't even need to look to know how smug she must have seemed. 66 yuan is nothing. Tim Lee is capable, and the money he'll make in the future will be endless. He's still far from being the richest man, but one day, I'll be the richest man's wife. I gave a soft, soundless laugh. Becoming the richest man's wife depended entirely on Tim actually becoming the richest man, and with his nature, that was hardly certain. Still, I silently wished my dear sister all the best. Emma snorted and turned over, ending the conversation. 2 cycles of day and night passed, and soon it was the day of Emma's and my weddings. Marrying off 2 daughters on the same day was a big event, and the village was buzzing with excitement as many came to watch the spectacle. Just as the sun reached its peak, Ryan Carter and Tim Lee arrived, one after the other. Ryan came riding a bicycle, dressed sharply in his military uniform. Tall, long-legged, and stern-faced, he looked difficult to approach. Tim, on the other hand, arrived in a rumbling tractor that could be heard from afar, with a festive red flower tied to its front. To Emma, the tractor was a point of pride. She lifted her chin and bragged, "See? Look at that." Emma lifted her chin proudly and said, "Didn't I tell you Tim Lee is capable? Not only did he borrow a tractor for the wedding, He's got so many friends here to cheer him on. Look at Ryan Carter. He only brought a handful of people. Isn't that pathetic? I didn't bother to argue and shot back lightly. But are those Tim Lee's friends here to welcome me? They're nowhere to be seen. What's the point of having a crowd of idle hangers-on? Emma bit her lip and stomped her foot. You're just jealous of me. To keep up appearances, both Emma and I were covered with red bridal veils and handed over by our parents, me to Ryan Carter and Emma to Tim Lee. The tractor rumbled off in a lively procession, while Ryan guided me onto the back seat of his bicycle. The rural dirt road was bumpy and uneven, sometimes jolting over loose stones, and I swayed precariously on the back. Noticing my unease, Ryan cautioned gently. The road's rough. Hold on to my waist so you don't fall. I hesitated for a moment, then carefully wrapped my arms around him. His waist was lean and firm, his back broad and steady, and pressing my face against him filled me with an unexpected sense of security. Maybe he really would be a good husband. When we arrived at the Carter home, I was led into the bridal chamber. After the bustle faded, the door pushed open, and someone came in smelling faintly of liquor. My red veil was lifted, and by the dim glow of the kerosene lamp, Ryan got his first look at his new bride. I was slender, my face strikingly beautiful, though still holding the freshness of youth, like a rosebud not yet in full bloom. But something felt wrong. He had heard that Emma was already 20 years old. How could the girl before him look so young, almost childlike? The alcohol in his blood made his head throb even more. He pressed his fingers to his temple, then opened his eyes sharply, gaze cutting straight through me. You're not Emma. His certainty made me finally relax. From the moment he entered, I'd felt his searching gaze. There was no way to hide the truth forever, and I hadn't really planned to deceive him for long. I raised my head, letting a trace of helplessness soften my expression. I'm Lisa, Emma's younger sister. We married on the same day. Originally, my family arranged for Emma to marry into the Carter family, and for me to marry into the Lee family. But before the wedding, Emma suddenly refused. She threatened her life unless she could marry Tim Lee. Our parents had no choice but to give in. I thought Ryan would be furious at being tricked, but instead he asked something completely unrelated. So, how old are you? 17, I admitted, picking nervously at my fingers. Seeing his frown, I quickly added, but I'll turn 18 in just 3 months. Ryan sighed, pulled over a chair and sat down, looking at me seriously. Since Emma forced the switch, I suppose you didn't want to marry me. If you truly don't wish, I do. I blurted out, before he could finish. I want to. You're a soldier, someone who defends our country with honor. I believe you'll treat me well. Besides, my family only wanted to marry me off quickly to collect dowry money for my brother's wives. If I didn't marry you, they would have married me to someone else. Please don't send me away. I can do housework, wash clothes, cook meals, everything. I'll be a good wife. My eyes were rimmed red, my voice trembling, and I knew I looked pitiful. It was enough to stir anyone's heart. For the first time, Ryan felt a shameful pang of desire. A voice inside scolded him. Ryan Carter, you beast! She's just a young girl. But another voice argued, you went through the wedding ceremony, held the banquet. She's your rightful wife now. What's shameful about feeling something for your wife? His heart wavered, torn between reason and instinct, until emotion finally overcame restraint. He rarely wanted anything for himself. But tonight, looking at this delicate young bride, tears shimmering in her eyes, soft and fragile and in need of protection, he suddenly longed to keep her close, to care for her, to spend a lifetime with her. After all, wasn't that simply a man's truest nature? It was nothing more than desire at first sight, but since I had already chosen to accept him, all I could do now was treat him well from here on. Ryan Carter stayed silent for a long time, and my uneasiness grew until I finally asked, testing the waters, "Can I stay here?" The worry in his brow smoothed away, replaced by a gentle smile. You married into my family, Lisa. From now on, the Carters are your family too. When my leave ends, I'll return to the base and file the marriage report. Once you turn 18, we'll get our license. I know you're capable, but I didn't marry you just to make you work. From now on, we'll share the housework together. I had gambled right. Ryan really was a good man. He said I was still underage, and that matters between husband and wife could wait. Then he lay down fully dressed, even placing a quilt between us as a boundary. In the darkness, my thoughts drifted. I couldn't help but recall my past life, the night I married Tim Lee. He had stumbled and drunk, shoved me onto the bed, and treated me roughly, with no care or tenderness. His violence left me terrified. He wore me out until I was too exhausted to move, and I didn't wake until the sun was high the next day. His 3 sisters-in-law sneered at me and dumped all the chores on my shoulders, while Tim never once defended me. When I went to him with my grievances, he only grew impatient. Which daughter-in-law doesn't go through this? When my sisters-in-law first married in, my mother made them follow the rules too. You'll get used to it. Compared to that, Ryan was completely different. A family that could raise someone like him was bound to be far better than the Lees in every possible way. I drifted into sleep without noticing the tender, protective look in his eyes as he watched me in the dark. My mother had been right. Marrying into the Carter family truly was a blessing. My father and mother-in-law were kind and generous people. Even after my family had swapped brides at the last moment, they showed no resentment toward me. Ryan's little sister, Claire Carter, was only 14. She was lively and considerate, and the night before, she had brought me my dinner. Thanks to her, I didn't go to bed hungry. 3 days later came the return visit to my parents' home. My mother-in-law prepared a generous set of gifts. 3 gin of pork belly, 1 grass carp, 2 gin of brown sugar, and a gin of sponge cake. Mom, I'll just take the sponge cake, I tried to decline. Sending good things to them is a waste. We might as well keep them for ourselves. She shot me a look but kept packing the items into the basket. What nonsense. This is your first return visit. How could you show up with only sponge cake? Besides, your sister Emma is returning home today too. If you're shown up by her, and your mother makes you lose face, how will that look? Her words pulled back memories of my past life. The Lee family, thinking their bride price was high, treated me as if I had been bought outright. They felt no need to prepare any proper return gifts to show goodwill to my parents. They only sent me home with 10 gin of sweet potatoes. In contrast, Emma's return gifts were lavish, and my mother compared us bitterly, scolding me as always for being useless, too stupid to bring anything back from my husband's family to help them. She had taken such a high bride price, yet still wasn't satisfied. She only schemed about what else I could bring home, never sparing a thought for my struggles in the Lee household. In my past life, after Emma poisoned me, my parents even helped her cover it up. They threw my body into the river under cover of night, then gave her money to escape and avoid justice. I should have seen their true colors long ago. That 288 yuan bride price, I would count it as the repayment for raising me. From now on, they wouldn't get a single thing more from me. After setting the gifts aside, my mother-in-law took my hand, fussing over me. Going back to your family alone is already unfair to you. These things are what Ryan asked me to prepare, to make sure you don't lose face. On the very first day of our marriage, Ryan had already been summoned back by his unit for an urgent mission. I went with him to the county bus station to see him off, reluctant to part. Remembering how in my last life he had been injured on a mission and forced to leave the army, my heart was filled with worry. Be careful when you're on duty, I told Ryan, holding back the worry in my chest. Try not to get hurt. Fame and fortune don't matter. What we hope for most is that you come back safe. Ryan pulled me into his arms and promised firmly, don't worry. We're not even legally married yet. I'll definitely return safely to you. Warmth spread from my heart to every part of my body, wrapping me in comfort. In the end, my mother-in-law and I compromised. I brought the grass carp and sponge cake as my return gifts. The fish weighed at least 4 or 5 gin, quite a treat for my family. When I arrived home, Emma was lounging in the main room, cracking pumpkin seeds. She looked up at me with a bright smile. Lisa, you're back. What good things did you bring with you? My mother rushed over, eager to see, but when she noticed what I was carrying, her face darkened instantly. Not giving up, she craned her neck to look behind me. Just you? And only these few things? I nodded. Ryan had an urgent mission. He returned to his unit the day after our wedding. Mom, if you're not satisfied with what I brought, I can take them back with me. My mother shot me a glare before quickly snatching the fish and cake, her expression grudgingly appeased. This fish is at least fat enough. Go and cook it. We'll have guests later, and I need to treat them well so they'll help your eldest brother find a good wife. Sold me off, and now she still wanted me to cook? I plopped into a chair, grabbed a handful of pumpkin seeds, and cracked them open. In the past, I used to cook without complaint, but today was my return visit. What sense was there in making the married daughter cook? Since I had brought things home, shouldn't she be the one preparing a good meal to treat me? Seeing I wouldn't budge, she turned to Emma. Emma, you go cook. Why me? Emma protested, displeased. Mother snatched the pumpkin seeds from her hand and snapped. Because you returned with nothing but 10 gin of sweet potatoes. My daughter married into the Lees and all they gave her to bring home was sweet potatoes. Who are they trying to insult? Later, you'll have to bring things back to them. If you don't want your in-laws to look down on you, you'd better get up and cook right now. A girl sold off by her family can't still expect others to respect her. You can't be greedy and want it all. The mention of return gifts made Emma grimace. Reluctantly, she headed into the kitchen, knowing she had no choice. Her sisters-in-law already resented her because of the dowry money. If she went back without decent gifts, they'd laugh at her forever. But my mother couldn't stand to see me idle either, so she sent me out to the garden to pull vegetables. On my way back, I ran into Tim Lee wandering about. His eyes lit up when he saw my face, and his gaze clung to me greedily. So you're Lisa? You're much prettier than your sister. Too bad you married the wrong man. If not, such a beautiful wife would have been mine. I tried to sidestep him, but he grabbed my arm roughly. From the looks of you, you've never tasted a man before, have you? I heard your husband went back to his unit the day after the wedding. Long nights must get lonely and... Before he could finish, a furious shout came from the doorway. Lisa, how dare you seduce my husband? Emma rushed over, yanked Tim behind her, and glared at me defensively. Tim spoke lazily, as though nothing had happened. We were just talking. Why are you making such a fuss? Emma didn't dare blame Tim, so she turned her anger on me. You've always used that pretty face to lure people. Do you think I don't know? When I was 15, I liked a boy from the village, and finally gathered the courage to confess to him, but he rejected me. He said he liked you instead. I came home crying and told our second brother. He held you down so I could vent my anger. I slapped you again and again until your face swelled like a pig's head. You deserved it. Back then, I had been powerless to resist. But now, things were different. I raised my hand and slapped Emma hard across the face. My face went cold, my voice laced with disdainful mockery. Ryan Carter is upright and dignified, with a bright future in the army. I must have been blind in my past life to ever marry a useless loafer like Tim Lee, and now I'm the wife of a soldier, honored as a military spouse. So don't you dare spout nonsense again. Otherwise, I can accuse you of sabotaging a military marriage and have you thrown in prison. At the mention of prison, Emma's face paled. She couldn't help recalling her past life, when she'd killed me in a fit of rage. To escape punishment, she had been forced to flee her home, living in fear every time she saw a police officer on the road, terrified they'd come to arrest her. Her money soon ran out, and with nowhere to go, she fell for the lies of a so-called kind-hearted woman who promised her work. Instead, she was tricked into prostitution. The money came quickly, enough to let her live comfortably for a while, but she gave in to that life. She wasted more than a decade in a haze until she caught a filthy disease and died far from home. When she opened her eyes again, she was back on the eve of her wedding. Remembering her miserable fate and seeing the glory I had once enjoyed as the richest man's wife, she had sworn to seize that title for herself this time. She couldn't go to prison. How else could she ever become the richest man's wife? Still, in front of me, she refused to back down. Stammering, she tried to justify herself. You're just too attractive for your own good. I was only worried Tim might be bewitched by you. I never meant to ruin a military marriage. Don't try to pin false charges on me. So what if you're a soldier's wife? Does that give you the right to frame people? While Emma and I argued, Tim Lee stood behind her like a spectator, detached and indifferent, showing no sense of responsibility. I curled my lip in contempt, too tired to keep quarreling. Yes, a soldier's wife shouldn't falsely accuse people, but can you? Clearly, he was the one pestering me. You'd better keep a leash on your man. Dogs can't change their nature. After such a scene, I had no desire to stay for lunch. Without another word to anyone, I left and went straight back to the Carter home. My mother-in-law didn't ask why I returned so early. She simply greeted me warmly and invited me to eat. In that moment, I felt deeply fortunate to have such a kind family. The days that followed were steady and happy. 3 meals a day, and every half-month, I would receive a letter from afar. In his letters, Ryan asked if I was adjusting well to life with the Carters, reminded me to eat well and keep warm, and described the snowy highlands where he was stationed, saying he hoped one day I could see them too. I always wrote back, tucking in cured sausages and jars of meat sauce with my letters. Thinking of the harsh climate, I knitted him 2 sweaters and bought tins of barrier cream. The army might provide supplies, but handmade things carried my heart. As the 12th lunar month set in, the pigs the village had raised that year were fat and ready. 2 were handed in for quota, and 1 was slaughtered to be shared among the villagers. The cold was biting, and since my father and mother-in-law were elderly, I volunteered to go collect our share. While waiting in line, I ran into Emma. She glanced at my thick cotton coat, jealousy flashing in her eyes before she masked it with gloating malice. So Ryan Carter won't even be back for New Year's? What, did he get hurt on duty? She smirked. What's so good about being a soldier anyway? Bullets flying everywhere. You never know if he'll come back missing an arm or a leg. Glory, sure, but it's his wife and family who suffer. My heart sank. Lately, my letters to Ryan had gone unanswered, and worry gnawed at me. Being a soldier was his dream, and I knew a soldier's duty was obedience to orders. I couldn't stop him from taking missions, nor could I convince him to retire. All I could do was remind him again and again in my letters to stay safe, but hearing Emma curse him so viciously was unbearable. Without hesitation, I slapped her across the face. Emma clutched her cheek and screamed, drawing the attention of the crowd around us. You're insane! I shot back in fury. My husband protects the country, and you actually dare curse him to lose an arm or a leg? Even if you are my sister, I won't let that slide. I'll hit you for it. The crowd that had gathered began murmuring. She's right. Being a soldier is dangerous, but they're all heroes. If not for men like him, would we be standing here safe, gossiping about them? Unable to endure the villagers' judgment, Emma snapped back loudly. This is our family's business. Why are you all sticking your noses in where they don't belong? The people shook their heads, scolded her a few times, and then let it go. When my turn came, I collected the meat and was about to leave, but Emma blocked my way again. Just wait. Ryan Carter will be injured and forced to retire soon. You'll never surpass me in this lifetime. Carrying the meat, I was sick of her endless needling. Irritation burned in me, so I went straight for her weak spot. And how's life in the Lee household treating you? You work the fields, then come back to do chores at home, washing clothes, cooking, scrubbing, everything. Your parents-in-law don't help. Your sisters-in-law push you around, and your husband acts like a lazy master, never lifting a finger. All the things you never did in our own home, you're forced to do there. Is this the wonderful marriage you risked your life for? Emma froze, humiliated. The meat in her hand slipped to the ground. You? How do you know that? Did you? I cut her off coldly. We live in the same village. Do you think I wouldn't know what goes on in your house? The path you chose. You'll walk it, even if you're crying. I let her cling to her fantasy of being the richest man's wife. When she finally realized the man she had staked her life on wasn't what she imagined, she would be drowning in disappointment and regret. Emma picked up the meat again, her eyes shining with longing as she painted her dream aloud. You don't understand. One day, Tim Lee will spread his wings, and I'll live the life everyone envies. You'll just spend your days in poverty with Ryan Carter. When the time comes, I'll take pity on you and help you out. Laughing smugly, she walked away, even her back brimming with arrogance. I could only shake my head helplessly. I had already wasted enough time. It was better to hurry home. At the table, the dish of braised pork smelled so good it made my mouth water, but I couldn't bring myself to enjoy it. In my past life, it was around this time, just before the new year, that Ryan had been injured and sent back. It had already been a month and a half since his last letter. A piece of meat was dropped into my bowl. Looking up, I met my mother-in-law's warm gaze. She smiled knowingly. Thinking about Ryan again? He's always been like this. Sometimes, months go by without a word, and it's just because he's away on missions. And now the mountains are buried in snow. It's possible letters just can't get through. Don't worry, when he comes back on leave, I'll scold him myself. It was fine when he was single, but now he has a wife. He shouldn't let you worry so much. Claire, who was happily eating, lifted her head to chime in. Don't worry, sister-in-law. My brother's amazing. He always comes back safe from every mission. The atmosphere at the table was cheerful, and I didn't want to spoil it, so I forced a smile and joined in. But unease gnawed at me. Would my warnings really help Ryan avoid disaster this time? When Ryan finally returned, my heart dropped at the sight of him, then swelled with a dense ache. The car door opened, and a strong soldier carried Ryan on his back. I rushed ahead to lead the way, letting him bring Ryan into the house and lay him on the bed. Only after settling him in did I have the chance to ask what had happened. Ryan lay there, raising a hand to brush away my tears. Don't cry, it's just a bullet wound, one in my back and one in my right leg. Luckily, I survived. The doctor said if the bullet had been 2 millimeters closer, it would have hit my spine. I stayed in the military hospital for half a month, and I'm almost recovered now. The injuries just look scary. I couldn't spend the new year with you, but I had to come back no matter what. He smiled lightly, but I knew the pain must have been unbearable. I tucked the blanket around him, still anxious. And what did the doctor say? Will this affect your training or future missions? No, Ryan answered gently, his eyes soft with affection. You're still waiting for me at home. I'll always come back safely to you. My face flushed, and I turned away in embarrassment. You and your smooth tongue. But news traveled fast. When people heard Ryan had been carried back wounded, Emma came to the door feigning concern, but I stopped her at the entrance. She saw my eyes still red from crying and sneered smugly. You're crying so hard. Are you afraid Ryan Carter's injuries are too serious and he'll never be a soldier again? I smiled brightly. Then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Ryan's injuries don't affect his ability to continue serving. Emma's smile froze instantly. After a brief flicker of panic, she grabbed my shoulders and shook me hard, her eyes wild with unwillingness. Where did it go wrong? Why is Ryan fine? How can he still be fine? Lisa, I won't accept this. I absolutely won't. With a shove, she pushed me aside, shot me a venomous glare and ran off. Fortunately, I had braced myself and didn't fall. Watching her fleeing figure, panic written in every step, I couldn't help but laugh. She was so desperate not to fall behind me that she would surely pressure Tim Lee to start a business as soon as possible, eager to become the richest man's wife at any cost. The next day, my mother-in-law took me and Claire to the county town to buy New Year's supplies. As we came out of a shop with our purchases, we ran into Emma carrying a bamboo basket. She snorted at me, tugged along an unwilling Tim Lee, and hurried away. Claire blinked in confusion. Why are they rushing off like that? Maybe something urgent, I answered lazily, though I knew very well what they were up to. Emma was desperate to get into business. But since private trade was still forbidden, the only way to get ahead of others once the policy relaxed was to take risks on the black market to build up capital. I shook my head. Her need to compete with me was so strong she dared to dabble in profiteering. Well, good luck to her. That evening, just as our family sat down to dinner, loud pounding rattled the door. Lisa, get out here. Dare to do it, but not admit it? Hiding inside. What kind of ability is that? Really, couldn't we even eat in peace? Outside, the shouting continued. Annoyed, I yanked the door open and leaned against the frame. What now? What nonsense are you screaming about? Emma's eyes blazed as she accused. If you hadn't snitched, how would the police have shown up at the black market? Not sooner, not later, exactly today. Everything we took was confiscated. Are you happy now? You just can't stand to see me doing well. I couldn't even be bothered to argue. The rules haven't changed yet. The government's still cracking down on profiteering. What does that have to do with me? You chose to run headlong into danger, so don't blame me for your losses. I've been home working all day. How would I even have the time to meddle in your business? If you think you lost too much this time, then settle down and live honestly. Stop chasing foolish dreams of getting rich overnight. Emma had risked everything just to become the richest man's wife and trample me under her feet. The cold water I poured on her would only make her more stubborn, more determined to prove herself. She glared at me with hatred. So Ryan Carter survived this time. Lucky him. But bullets don't have eyes. He can't always be so lucky. You try to trip me up to stop me from doing business, but I'll do it anyway. Lisa, you'll always be beneath me, crushed under my feet. Just wait and see. Still unsatisfied, she kicked the wooden door hard. It slammed against the frame with a bang, not bouncing back right away. Then a calm, commanding voice came from behind me. This is the Carter household. Comrade, why are you barging in here at night, taking out your temper on my family? I turned. Ryan was standing there. He gave me a reassuring look before fixing his sharp gaze on Emma, his presence radiating the authority of a soldier. His aura was so overwhelming that Emma didn't dare meet his eyes. Panic seized her and she bolted, her clumsy, uneven steps betraying her fear. Does your sister bully you often? Ryan asked as I helped him back into the room. It's nothing, just harsh words, and I always give it right back. I'd never just sit there and take her abuse. Ryan tilted his head to look at me, eyes filled with tenderness. That's good. As long as you stand tall, I'll always be behind you. We entered the room, and I struck a match to light the kerosene lamp. A cold wind rushed in, making the flame leap happily like a beating heart. During the days Ryan stayed home recovering, we went together to register our marriage, holding the marriage certificate in my hands, bright as an award. I finally felt the reality of being married again. By the time the willow trees sprouted new buds, when Ryan Carter's leave came to an end, and he was about to return to his unit, he asked me the night before he left, when the family quarters at the base are finished, would you be willing to live there with me? In the dim flicker of the kerosene lamp, I saw the nervous tension in his eyes. My heart softened. Yes, when the time comes, I'll definitely go with you. Joy burst from his gaze, though he tried to downplay it. The conditions in the army can't compare to life at home. It's tough. But his hands, tightening around my waist, betrayed how much my answer meant to him. I pretended to hesitate. Then, maybe I shouldn't go after all. He believed me instantly, the corners of his eyes drooping in disappointment. I couldn't bear to trick him anymore. Reaching up to touch his face, I whispered, "Wherever you go, I'll follow. The hardships don't matter. Since I married you, I'll stay by your side. Living apart for long stretches isn't good for a marriage." Hearing this, his expression lit up with delight. Before I could react, he swept me into his arms. "What are you doing?" I gasped, my face flushing as he carried me to the bed with a mischievous grin. "I'm leaving tomorrow. There are some things that shouldn't be put off." Outside, thunder rumbled across the night sky, spring rain pouring down to soak the earth. After Ryan returned to the base, life went on as usual. The routine was steady, but word of the Lees often stirred the stillness with fresh drama. After losing her goods to the authorities during the black market raid, Emma refused to give up. Once the storm blew over, she started selling food instead: steamed buns, plain rolls, and flour rolls. They were cheap to make and easy to carry. As her small business grew, Emma walked with pride, her head held high. The Lee sisters-in-law, envious of her profits, wanted a share, but Emma wouldn't allow it. Their bickering and fights became constant. Still, the business lasted into summer, until the day Emma came home from selling as usual and was confronted the moment she stepped through the door. It turned out she hadn't wanted to waste the meat buns left over from the day before. She reheated them the next day and sold them again. In the summer heat, the buns had spoiled, and a customer fell violently ill. Furious, they came to demand compensation. Since Emma was at fault, she had no choice but to pay. That incident snuffed out the arrogance she'd built for making money. The Lee parents-in-law decided business was unreliable, profits were small, losses were bigger, and firmly opposed her continuing. Tim Lee, who preferred pleasure to effort, was happy to drop it. Without money or goods, Emma had no way to stir up any more trouble. Her failure didn't surprise me. In my past life, my mother had forced me to find Emma work in my shop. Once there, she leaned on the fact she was my sister to slack off, cut corners, and substitute cheap ingredients. A booming business she nearly destroyed with her carelessness. In truth, when Tim Lee became the province's richest man in my previous life, 9/10 of the credit belonged to me. Tim had always been spoiled, lazy, and useless, only good at drinking and playing. His brothers and sisters-in-law had long been fed up with him. He refused to work the fields, and I couldn't support two mouths on my own, so I had no choice but to find another path. Thankfully, I'd been good at cooking since I was a child, and once the policies loosened, I used Tim's hidden stash of money to start a food business. At first, I carried a bamboo basket door to door, selling what I made. Later, I pushed a small cart. Eventually, I rented a storefront. Step by step, the business grew larger. Both my natal family and my in-laws praised Tim, saying it was his accomplishment. But that fool could never in 100 lifetimes become the richest man on his own. When her business collapsed, Emma started clamoring to go work in Yangcheng. She said with the reforms there, money was lying on the ground waiting to be picked up. For people in our village, the farthest most had ever traveled in their lives was to the county town. Emma had never even been to the city, yet she dared to dream of going thousands of miles away to Yangcheng. Truly, her heart was too big for her own good. That night, loud pounding shook our door again. I rubbed my eyes and went to open it, only to see Emma disheveled, her clothes wrinkled and hair a tangled mess. The instant the door opened, she lunged forward, hands clamping around my neck like a madwoman, teeth clenched in rage. "Lisa, you knew all along, didn't you? Tim Lee can't even have children. He actually asked his friends to impregnate me. If I'm ruined, don't think you'll have it any better." Her face twisted, bloodshot eyes wild, her grip on my throat tightened until I could barely croak. "If you kill me, you won't have it any better either." Only then did the truth click into place. Why had the Lees offered such an unusually high bride price? In my past life, I'd thought it was because Tim had such a bad reputation in the village that they needed to pay more to marry off into another. Later, when my business started doing well, the Lees grew fearful I might stray. Together with Tim, they schemed to get me drunk, then arranged for his cronies to violate me. Half conscious, I knew something was wrong but had no strength to resist. The next morning, I overheard Tim's self-pity, realizing then that he couldn't father children. He had only married to maintain appearances, to look like a normal man. I'd felt utterly deceived. Running back to my parents' house, I begged them to stand up for me. But they were weak, urging me to return and endure. The Lees even came to drag me back by force, threatening that if I divorced, they'd spread rumors of my infidelity, ruin my family's reputation, and demand double repayment of the dowry. Terrified, my parents knelt before me, begging me to go back with them. Now seeing Emma in that same position, I couldn't help but wonder how our parents would treat their precious daughter. My words stunned her for a moment, and I seized the chance to kick her hard in the stomach. With a cry of pain, she crumpled to the ground, clutching her belly, loosening her grip. I looked down at her coldly. "Since you've suffered such a loss, why not go home? You're the daughter they love most. Surely they'll get you justice." Light flickered in her pale, furious eyes, though suspicion soon followed. "Would you really be that kind?" I bent down, smiling as I helped her up. "There's no deep hatred between us. If not for you, I'd be the one trapped in the Lee's pit. You took my place, and I feel both grateful and guilty. The least I can do is give you some advice." Emma seemed half convinced. She clutched my hand, her voice trembling with eagerness. "Then let's go now. I don't want to stay in the Lees' house for another second." But I had no intention of wading into that mess. Turning away, I coughed a few times. "I've caught a cold these past few days, dizzy and weak. I can't make the trip with you. Besides, dawn is breaking. If the Lees discover you're missing, they'll come looking." At the mention of the Lees, her face went chalk white. She released my hand and fled into the chirping of the cicadas, running wildly back. "Go on, Emma," I thought coldly. "Go see how your doting parents abandon their daughter without hesitation the moment she becomes a burden. To them, daughters will never matter more than sons and grandsons." I tilted my head to the night sky. The stars blinked down, steady and unchanging, watching over the earth. The next morning, my father and mother-in-law and Claire helped load my luggage onto the tractor to send me off to the county bus station. A week earlier, Ryan had telegraphed home, saying the snows had melted and it was the perfect time for me to join him at the base. Delighted that we would be reunited, my in-laws urged me to go quickly. As the tractor rumbled toward the village entrance, we came face to face with Emma. Despair shadowed her features as Mrs. Lee and the 3 Lee sisters-in-law hemmed her in tightly, leaving no way to escape. Sitting high on the tractor, I shaped the words silently with my lips. "Goodbye, Emma." At the sound of the engine, she instinctively looked up and saw me. Emma suddenly thrashed against their grip, screaming hoarsely, "Lisa, you lied to me. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I'm the one who should be the officer's wife. It should have been me. I regret it. I regret everything. Let's switch back. Let's switch back." Her voice was ragged with desperation, her body twisting violently, but the Lee sisters-in-law held her down with all their strength, leaving her no chance to escape. Mrs. Lee glared at her furiously while Uncle Yang tried to smooth things over, speaking both for Tim Lee and to the crowd that had gathered. "Yes, Tim likes drinking and gambling. He's a scoundrel, I won't deny it, but our family has always given you food and comfort. We've never treated you unfairly. What use is regret now? Back then, it was your sister we wanted. You were the one who insisted on trading places, crying and making a scene to marry in. We never complained, and now you're the first to go back on your word." Their voices carried as the tractor rolled farther and farther away, until I could no longer make out the words. The warm southern winds swept over the fields, and the wheat swayed in rippling waves. The tractor carried me onward, farther from the chaos I had left behind, and closer to a completely different kind of happiness. When I arrived at the military family compound, the atmosphere felt completely different from the old village. The rows of simple but orderly houses, the soldiers' wives chatting together, and the children running around in the yard all gave me a sense of peace and steadiness. Ryan was waiting for me at the gate. His uniform was crisp, the bandage on his arm still visible, but his posture was strong and his eyes were steady. He smiled, the smile I had been waiting for all this time. I ran to him, and when his hand closed firmly around mine, the warmth spread through my heart. From that moment on, no matter how hard or difficult life would be, I knew I had chosen right. I didn't need wealth or luxury, nor did I crave glory or fame. All I needed was to be with him, to face every storm by his side. As the sound of the bugle echoed across the base, I whispered to myself, "This is my true home." As for Emma, I no longer knew what her fate would be. Maybe she would stay trapped in regret, or maybe one day she would realize that chasing empty wealth was nothing compared to the comfort of a steady home. But that was no longer my story to tell. I lifted my head toward the wide blue sky, bathed in golden sunlight. The road ahead was still long, but as long as Ryan was with me, I believed this happiness would last